Welcome back to the Dragon's Lair, everybody. My name is Wade, and this is my show, Stranger Than Fiction, where I talk about wonderful, crazy, wild things that are stranger than fiction. Today, I want to talk about something that's real. It's very real, it happened. And the very first thing I want to say is a disclaimer. I don't wish any of these parties ill will. I'm not on anybody's side. I feel like I am just going to present the information as dispassionately as I can, and I feel like I'm going to represent everyone's point of view, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just here to tell you what happened. So, the event that I'm going to talk about today is what is known as the Ki Dozer incident. Now, I'm going to say nobody only one person lost their life in the course of this, and they ended their own life through the course of this. So if that is traumatic for you or triggering for you, you might want to skip this one because it does involve one person who ended their own life. So here's what you need to know about the event of Ki Dozer. It takes place in Granby, Colorado. So here's Granby. I looked for a really good map, and when I couldn't find one, this map just made me laugh. But it does a really good job of showing you where Colorado is, in case you didn't know, and then where Granby is, because I didn't know where Granby was. So, June 4th, 2004. So, at this point in 2026, this is more than 20 years ago. Granby, Colorado. A heavily modified Katsumu D355A bulldozer rolls into town and begins demolishing buildings. Okay, it starts with a batch cement plant. It then rolls into town hall, demolishes city hall. It rolls into several other homes and businesses and just demolishes them. Now, one thing you need to understand is the dozer model in question, okay, is this right here. So this is like I said, Komatsu D355A bulldozer. That's, if you bought one brand new, that's what it should look like. This is what rolled into town. Okay, see the armored shell around it? See how thick the armor is? And I can tell you this right now, the armor plates, it had one layer of armor on the outside, a layer of cement, and then another layer of armor on the inside. Okay, so this beauty was impenetrable. So for 2.5 hours, the specially modified bulldozer assaulted the town, destroyed 13 buildings, including City Hall, homes, businesses, several town officials' businesses and homes, and just stuff in the community, right? That totaled in $7 million in property damage. That's $7 million 22 years ago. So just imagine adjusted dollars now. The operator had welded themselves inside and installed armor plates with that layer of cement, making the cab completely encapsulated and inaccessible from the outside. There was CCTV cameras. That is how the operator was able to drive the bulldozer around, and they even installed like pneumatic pumps, like gas pressurized air, because there was portholes, and you can kind of see one there in the picture where the driver could look out from these portholes, and it had a very special layer of bulletproof glass that was in there. Anyways, it was able to push compressed air into those portholes to clear out the dust, so the driver could continue to see. Lastly, there was at least one. I think there was more than one, but there was at least one 50 caliber rifle installed into the armor as a part of the armor, so that the operator from inside the dozer could shoot out. 50 caliber rifles are no joke. Okay, it's a very powerful weapon. Police, state officials, community police officers, and other community members tried everything they could think of to stop the dozer, and they were at a complete loss. They were getting big, like, tractors that you would use to plow snow and stuff like that, and ramming it and trying to use the buckets to pick it up. They were trying to shove pieces of metal into the tracks to break the tracks. Everything they tried didn't work. They hit it with some low-level explosives. That didn't work. They found a vent, so a police officer jumps on top at a certain point in time, and there was a vent up top. They were dropping flashbangs down the vent and shooting into the vent. Nothing worked. There was no exit, so the operator, had welded themselves inside with no way for they themselves to get out. Over time, the dozer takes damage and it starts leaking coolant. So the engine starts to overheat. And the last place that it assaulted, which I believe you can see it in the background there maybe, was a hardware store that one of the local city officials owned. And what the driver did not know is that this hardware store had a basement. So it was already leaking coolant at that time. And then it got one of the sides of the tracks got stuck down into the basement. And so the dozer, which was insanely heavy, did not have all of the torque and the power and the horsepower that it needed to pull itself out. So it was overheating, which was causing it to shut down. So the engine was like shutting off because it was overheating, and then it got stuck. And because it was stuck, it was working. The engine was working too hard to try to pull itself out, and eventually the engine just died. Right. So this is an opportunity for the police to regroup, and they're coming up with all sorts of stuff. SWAT team is on the way because Granby is not big enough to have their own SWAT team. Which is when they hear a gunshot from inside. It did take many hours. They tried bombs. It didn't work. They eventually got a cutting torch out and cut their way inside, which is where they found the driver of the dozer was deceased because they had ended their own life. Um, so how did we get this far? Like how did it come to this? Right? That's a big question. um, so the answer to that is Marvin Haymeyer was a accomplished welder. He moved to Granby in the 90s, and he opened up his own muffler shop. Now, everyone said he was an amazing welder, and he did all this work for people for free because he was a snowmobile enthusiast. So he would create these custom bumpers out of like muffler material, and he opened up his own muffler shop, and he was a big success. Now, a lot of people say that Marv just worked so he could support himself, and so he could make a good living and then snowmobile the rest of the time. So evidently, he was so successful that his muffler shop wasn't open all the time. He didn't need to be open every day, every hour, constantly working because he was very successful, is what people say. I've never lived in Granby. This happened 22 years ago. I'm just going off of what I've studied. So, what it boils down to is Marv bought this muffler shop, okay? And he owned it for a while and he operated it for a while. And basically, that area got rezoned. And then they said that he had to hook up to this new wastewater line. And he refused because at that time it would cost him like $60,000. You got to remember that $60,000 in like 2000, okay? Because this event didn't happen until like 2004, okay? So that's a lot of money, right? And then another business person in the area wanted to buy the property next to his and build a batch plant, a cement batch plant, which he didn't like that idea. He was opposed to it. And he actually rallied the community because they didn't want the noise. Some people didn't want the noise and the dust that it would create. And they had some legitimate concerns, right? Well, basically, long story short, he tries to fight what he believes to be a conspiracy of people who live in Granby who have lived there much longer than he did. And they, where it's like a generational thing, right? Where all these people are from Granby and they're entrenched and they own everything and they're all the city clerks and everything. This is what he believed, that basically everyone was against him and everyone was mocking him to his face and everyone was trying to harm him and his business. That's what he believed. There is a series of audio cassette tapes where he lays this all down, and it does come across like a manifesto of sorts. Okay. Um, you know, Marv goes through a series of events where he progressively loses some things in his life. So he loses this whole thing, this whole process. And he loses a romantic relationship because this sort of starts to consume him, and this vendetta, right, that starts to consume him. He believes he is standing up for justice, and he may have been. He believes he is railing against a conspiracy of small town individuals who don't like him and is trying to drive him out. He may have been. Um, and that's, I can't say that he was wrong. I wasn't there. Um, what we can say, though, is ultimately he does go to California. He buys this bulldozer. He then has it shipped back to Colorado. That's no inexpensive feat. The bulldozer was not inexpensive. And then he parks it as an intimidation factor. Okay. He gets fined a lot of money because he won't hook up to the local sewer system that he's supposed to hook up to. He pays the fine. He's got money. Um, and loses lawsuit after lawsuit, and basically becomes cornered, where he basically runs out of options for appeals, and can't find a lawyer that will help him, is what he said and what he believed. And he decides to take matters into his own hands. So for a very small amount of time, like a year or two, because this whole story stretches several years, he can't run his muffler shop anymore because you can't have people in the building for an extended period of time, is what the local ordinance says. So he does find a local waste management company, like garbage trucks, for example, that wants to rent his building and his property to stage their business because that business was expanding. And Marv agrees. And everyone from that says that that was a profitable agreement. And Marv made money off of that. Eventually, Marv does sell his business, and he sold it for over $400,000 back in 2002. Is a good guesstimate there because it did take Marv over a year to complete the Killdozer, which nobody lost their life to the Killdozer. Um, so he then sells this his property and his business, has a big auction, sells a lot of his stuff, but nobody buys the building and nobody buys the dozer. He eventually sells the building, but then he's just left with this dozer. So he rents the building out, which is where he builds himself like a mountain man enclosure and lives in the shop and does this for over a year and nobody catches him. Works on the bulldozer for over a year and nobody catches him. Which all of these things play out in the tapes, where he believes that he was led by God to do this because all of these things happened just right, and he believes that that's providence and a sign. I don't agree with him. Okay, I'm not here to smear anybody. I'm just talking about the facts. Okay, those things that I said that were his opinions, you can hear those in the tapes that he recorded himself. Um, so eventually he lets loose his plan, right? So whatever Marv meant to accomplish, I understand wanting justice. I don't approve of his means. And some important things to understand is he didn't warn anybody. So, like, if you were going to knock down a house, you might call the people that were inside of it and tell them that they shouldn't be inside of it. Whether they listen or not, that's a different question. But when he went to City Hall, there was children in the library that's under City Hall, and he did not seem to have any regard for their safety because he did not warn them. And it stands to reason that he probably would have known that there would have been children there at that date and that time. So, like, if he would have done this at 2 a.m., for example, it would have been harder to stop him, and there wouldn't have been any people in any of those businesses or buildings. He took out the local newspaper, he took out the local hardware. I mean, you could argue that if he did it at 2 a.m., people would have been asleep in their houses, but he still assaulted people's houses when there was elderly people in those houses that couldn't get out. They started warning everybody once they found out that it was Marv. So, like I said, no one lost their life to the actual Killdozer or Marv. He shot at police officers. Big no no. He did not harm any of them, but he definitely shot at them. Um, and I don't approve. I love justice. I don't approve the way he went about it. So, like we said, in the end, um, Marv knew that he was going to be captured and ended his own life. Um, and if all of that wasn't terrible enough, on June 5th, 2004, Ronald Reagan died, and the events of the Killdozer incident got buried in the media. So no one ever talked about it because a former president passed away. And so all these crazy events really got swept under the rug. Uh, in my opinion, not as a part of a bigger conspiracy, just because something bigger in the news cycle happened. Um, so what I thought was really interesting about this, I love this story. It's unique, it's cool, it's different. It's never happened anywhere else that I know about. What I like is there's a documentary. Go ahead and check it out. I think I found it on Tubi. It was on YouTube's list of documentaries for a while, and it's called Tread. Is the name of the documentary. Go ahead and check that out. What I like about the documentary is it spends about the first half giving you everything from Marv's perspective, telling you who Marv is, why he felt the way that he did, why he saw the world, how he saw the world. And then at a certain point it shifts and it then starts using all the other people in the community giving their opinion. And it's these two worldviews are incompatible, they don't match. Now, if there was a conspiracy of people from Granby, of course none of their stories would match Marv's, and of course they would all be in lockstep, especially having many years to get their stories straight. So I'm not calling them liars. I'm just saying if there was a greater conspiracy, of course they would all be in on it. I don't know if Marv really was as persecuted as he claimed, and we can't prove any of that. We can't substantiate any of that. What we can prove is that he took some really bad actions that are not okay. It's just a blessing that nobody else was harmed. It's really unfortunate that Marv did not make it. But if you ever hear anyone talking about the events of Killdozer or the Killdozer incident, this is what it's all about. If you're interested, I would really encourage you to go watch the documentary. Like I said, I thought it was really cool because it gave sort of everyone's point of view. And what's ironic is the neighbor that built the cement batch plant, which was the first building to be destroyed, offered to buy Marv out, and Marv would agree and then back out and up the price, and then agree and back out and up the price. And where they stopped was Marv selling the business for $400,000, which is exactly what he sold the business to the waste management company. Marv intentionally, meticulously did a lot of this because Marv sold all his worldly possessions. He sold the business, he sold the building, he sold the property, he sold his house, sold all of those things. And over time, because it took this whole thing unraveled over time, he then gave that money to his father, who was sickly. His father then gave that money to his siblings as gifts and presents. so that when Marv was finally found guilty of this and did this, Marv did not have an estate for which anyone to seek damages. And furthermore, Marv did this and then made sure he was not in his father's will. And then his father died before Marv did this. So all of his father's wealth and possessions and stuff got split up amongst Marv's siblings and not him. He didn't have an inheritance to go against in court. So just the level of premeditation that went into this, um, legally, practically, um, I applaud his diligence and his desire for justice. He just did not go about it the right way. You can't make armored monstrosities and demolish a town. You can't do it. Anyways, so I tried really hard to dispassionately give everyone's point of view and everyone's opinion. Um, and I'm sorry that Marv, you didn't feel like anyone was listening to you and supporting you, and you felt like you were driven to do the things that you did. I'm sorry. To the people of Granby, I really hope that you've recovered. It's been 22 years, but I really hope that this hardship, you've recovered from it. It's got to be scary. It was not okay. Marv did not do good things. Here I am apologizing for Marv. I just wish everybody well. I'm not on anybody's side. I just want to tell the story. Anyways, so this is crazy, which makes it right up my alley. I love stories like this that are just insane and don't seem real, which is why this series is called Stranger Than Fiction. Anyways, we here at the Dragon's Lair want to say thank you for spending your time with us, and we want to say thank you for spending your time with us at the Dragon's Lair.